Well, hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We are really early this week because we have some stuff happening later this week and wanted to get the show in for you. So you're getting it early so you can either save it for Thursday or go ahead and grab the show early. Well, I guess if you're listening to it now, you don't have any choice. You didn't wait. You're one of those people who peeked under the Christmas tree. All right, let's talk about episode 74, Mike in the Midwest. Let's do this. Get that there. Get that there. See here, we got that there. Good. All right, here we go. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 74 of Mike in the Midwest, the mini podcast for you, the amazing patrons of the Be Our Guest podcast. Thank you so much for being here. We're recording this one a little bit early. It is Tuesday, September. It is Tuesday, November 16th, 2021, just in case you're listening to this one down the road. And wanted to send again a huge thank you for your support of the podcast through Patreon. I know I hate to ask for that support, but it really is helping us kind of pay the bills and keep things going, especially since the pandemic started back in March of 2020. It has really assisted everything we do. At that point, I didn't know how much longer the podcast would last. And this next week, we're celebrating 2,000 episodes. Actually, a little bit confusing here. Let me just break it down for you. And I know that the Mike in the Midwest, this mini podcast for you guys, it's not the most professional show. It's basically just my ramblings for about 30 minutes once a week. And it's not much, but I appreciate you guys downloading it and giving some feedback over on the Patreon page. But basically, you guys kept the show going and you keep doing that. And I appreciate it very much. And I look at the Patreon support as support for the Be Our Guest podcast, definitely not for Mike in the Midwest. I just like to jump on here once a week and share a couple of stories and give you some feedback of what's going on with the show behind the scenes. But I'm pretty stoked that this next week on Monday, we're going to be putting out episode number 2000 of the Be Our Guest podcast. 2000. Now, that's a pretty big deal. Now, we're not going to be celebrating it with like a big, like extravaganza 2,000-hour show or anything on Monday. It's just going to be a regular old Trip Report show with one of our listeners that I scheduled 3 months ago, and it just happened to fall on episode 2000. So I thought that would be a very nice way to kind of celebrate 2000, just with a regular listener who emailed me at a regular time to talk about a regular trip to Walt Disney World. It is very special to them, very special to me. And that's what the show has always been about since March of 2008. So we're going to have a celebration of what the show has always been over those 2000 shows, a trip report on a Monday with a listener who wants to come on and share her show, her story, her trip reports. That's going to be Monday. And then on Wednesday, we're planning to do episode 2001 of Podcast Odyssey. That's where Pam, Ricky, and we'll probably hopefully get Scott to jump on with us as well and just kind of reflect on some of the crazy stuff we've done over the past 2000 episodes, discuss that. And then Friday, we might do listener questions or whatever. So we'll do a little bit of a reflection next week, but I just want to thank you for allowing us to do 2000 episodes. Real quick, we'll talk about this next week, but I just got to say, I'm a huge podcast fan. I listen to podcasts every single day. You guys know that I typically get up and run every morning for a couple of hours, and that is my dedicated podcast listening time. I have all kinds of podcasts. I listen to podcasts about retro topics, retro gaming, retro collecting. There's a couple of Disney podcasts I listen to. There's some tech podcasts. There's some sports podcasts. I listen to a bunch of different topics. There's news. And the thing is, everybody has their own style. Everybody has their own voice. Everybody has their own production way to get things out there. And I appreciate each and in every way. Everybody has their own humor and their rapport with the co-hosts and stuff. And I love that. But the one show that I look back on, and a lot of you guys probably remember it because I know who you guys are that are our patrons, and a lot of you guys, not age wise, but you're the old timers. You're kind of the OG crew from the Disney community. You know, back in the day, I think a lot of us kind of fell in love with podcasting when it was, WDW Today with Matt, Mike, and Len, and we had other podcasts out there as well, but they were the guys that were out there 3 times a week and they answered questions. And, really, they did the call-in shows once a month where you could, call in and be a part of the show. and they did the fun topics, and they would do live shows from Walt Disney World and, different places. And I mean, there's no doubt that I looked up to them. And I remember the first time I got to meet Hotchberg at Walt Disney World, and he was so nice to me, very kind. And I called into the show a few times, and he had me on episode 243, driving to Walt Disney World. And I got to talk to all four of them. Then I got to meet Len, I got to meet Newell, got to meet Scopa at some races. And it's one of those things that I really did look up to them, and I still do. And I appreciate them because they were nothing but kind to me. And when I came into the podcasting space, I had no idea what I was doing. I was lucky that I had a dad that works in the field of radio, that had the equipment and the know-how to wire everything. And, the production side, he got everything running for me. He didn't know what a podcast was, but he knew how to do radio stuff. And I said, well, it's basically like radio. You just basically record it, and then you just got to upload it to a website, and it sends out to around the world. And he said, well, that's never going to work. In 2008, he says, that's kind of dumb. There's no future in this podcasting. You should try to be in the radio. I'm like, well, maybe we'll see. I think podcasting doing okay. But anyway, it's one of those things, like looking back over 2000 episodes. I remember when Walt Disney World Today, WDW Today, did their 1000th episode. And if you were around, you might remember they did it at Atlantic Dance Hall, live from Walt Disney World. I remember the marquee out there. And I thought, God, how could a podcast do 1,000 episodes about Walt Disney World? I still remember that. It was like, I can't believe it. Like, they did 1,000 episodes, 1,000 times they sat down and talked about Walt Disney World, and they had a topic. And now, we're hitting 2,000, and it's not because of us. It's because of our community. It's because you guys continue to write in questions for our Wednesday shows, or you join us. Even better, you join us live and just throw out a question live. Hey, what about this on GD Plus? Or what about transportation options once Magical Express goes away? Is the dining plan going back? What are they going to do with the NBA Experience, big building that's going to sit empty? We have all this speculation. What's the next resort going to be after Galactic Star Cruiser? It's fun because Walt Disney World's a dynamic place. It's always changing. We can always dream about it. We can talk about the past. We can talk about what they could do better. And that's what makes it fun. And the thing is, everyday life gets sometimes stale and boring, but Walt Disney World gives us an opportunity to reflect back on our best times. I can look back at trips where Paige was 7, she's now 25, and think about, God, those were such good times when Pop Century was brand new. I mean, all the trees around Pop Century were just like little bitty palm trees. And we were down there for Hurricane Charlie, and it ripped a bunch of those trees right out of the ground. They were so young. They didn't even take root yet. And, like Pop Century was the greatest hotel in the world. You could not have told me Pop Century was not the greatest hotel in the world, because that was the only thing we knew. We were a young family. All we had was Paige, 5 or 6, 7 years old. And now we've grown up, and we've stayed at Boardwalk. We've stayed at Beach Club. We've stayed at Riverside. We've stayed at French Quarter, Coronado. And we've had all these other experiences. Mallory's been with us. And so I could reflect back on great times. And that's kind of what the podcast has become. But also now we get to talk about future trips all the time, right? We talk about the next trip. What's Marathon Weekend going to look like in 2022? How are the corrals going to be different? What's the expo going to be like? Do we have to digitally sign the waivers? What happens if you don't? Probably nothing, because I didn't sign mine and I was fine for Wine and Dine. It's just fun because it's a Walt Disney World as a community that we have, the Disney community, and the podcasting community is fun because we have kind of the past, the now, and the present. And that lends itself really well to podcasting, in my opinion, because on Fridays, sometimes we get the opportunity to look back, right? We get to look back. Well, I mean, Mondays, that's basically what we do every Monday, right? We look back on a past trip. What did you do? Where did you stay? What were some of your best meals? Tell me about the rides that really hit home, or what was a good story? That's why I always tell my guests, a little behind the scenes here, kind of breaking the fourth wall. If you come on a Monday show, one of the things I always tell the guests before we start recording is what I think the listeners like best. It's not so much a list of like, you did these 17 attractions. Like, first we did Peter Pan, then we did Seven Dwarfs, then we did the Carousel, then we did Pirates of the Caribbean. That's okay. But I think what the listeners want to hear on a Monday is, tell me a story that happened at the Magic Kingdom. So this cast member came up to us right before Disney's Enchantment started and asked us, you guys all have on Ohio shirts. Are you from Ohio? I'm from Ohio. I like those kind of stories. And then we got to, move up. I like the stories, the stuff that happens unexpectedly on a Disney vacation. Those are the things I like. So anyway, we reflect on Mondays. Wednesdays, we're kind of in the now, answering questions, trying to help you have a better vacation. speculation as well. But then Fridays, we got into this Friday, you'll hear that we play Odds Makers, a show that we used to do 10 years ago, where we kind of you place odds on something happening, almost like bets on Skyliner expansion or Disney dining plan coming back by next September, stuff like that. Disney announcing a new hotel in the next 2 years, stuff like that. So I hope you always enjoy the show. And we've been lucky enough to put out 2,000 episodes. I look around, I see a lot of podcasts in different genres. I haven't seen a lot of them with 2,000 episodes, but I hope it's not 2,000 episodes of junk. I hope it's 2,000 episodes that we have shared a few laughs, that we've shared a few good tips. But the one thing that when I hear this about our show, and not to toot our own horn, but the one thing that does make me happy whenever I hear it is that there's positivity around our show. That we kind of, we can keep it positive. We can steer clear of the negative, and we can like be a friend in your ear. So thank you for being that support. Again, when you support the show, you guys help us do that. So just thank you. I wish I could just hug y'all. I appreciate you guys so very much. So thank you so much. And I'm glad that we get to celebrate 2,000 episodes this week. It's exciting. So thank you for that. And I appreciate it. But we're here early, so I hope you're enjoying the show, either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Just think about it. A week from this Thursday here in the States, we'll be enjoying turkey, one of my favorite days. Then it's my birthday right after that. So it'll be pretty exciting times. All right. So let's hit the feedback from last week. Now, last week was a weird show. I just broke it down for you because I consider you guys like the heart of the audience. You're here, you're invested at the highest level. And I was having a rough time with that decision to come home after 18 hours at Walt Disney World. I felt I left down the Lizards. I only ran the one race. I should have stayed for the half marathon, but I do want to go over the feedback because I've always done that. I've kind of made a point to always read all the feedback here on the podcast because I think it's interesting to hear what other people say. Is you're listening on a walk or on a run, you can kind of get the feel of the community. So jumping in back to the world's shortest WDW trip, Amy Rivers, thanks for being a patron, says family and your health come first. Without those, you have nothing. No one will blame you for putting those first, and you won't be disappointing your listeners. While we all love your upbeat manner, we realize you're a real person and can't be upbeat all the time. Keep up the good work, Mike. Well, thank you, Amy. I will say one other thing. And this is not good. Okay, so you guys may remember, here's another TMI, but it's Mike in the Midwest. Okay, so I'm just, again, not on the big show. You guys are the only ones that know. That's where you get a little behind the scenes access here. This is what this is all about. If you remember back in May, I got an unexpected kidney stone that I had to have surgery for to get it removed. Like, boom, on a Friday night, instead of being at my favorite Mexican restaurant, I was having surgery for kidney stone removal. And then it was super painful. It was nothing I ever want to have again. Well, guess what's back? It is, I have that again. Now I'm not going to have surgery again. Not going to have it. Not going to do it. But if you notice, I haven't posted many runs this week. I can't. I'm trying. And I'm going to try to get on the treadmill again tomorrow morning, but we'll see. The last 2 days, I ran on Sunday. So I got to get in 13 miles on Sunday on the tread because I felt pretty good. I was able to tolerate it. Monday and today, it just wasn't happening. So I am trying to keep it going, but my streaks, and I like to keep my streaks going, but I just couldn't do it the last couple of days. But watch on Instagram. I'm going to try to get up there each morning. I try to get the sneakers on, get down there, and we'll see how it feels tomorrow, but we're going to try to get there. Jennifer Perry, thank you for being a patron. Says, I'm pretty new around here, but you never need to apologize for being less than cheerful. Thank you for showing us your human side. I think you absolutely made the right decision to be with your family, and your teammates understand that. I'm praying that you can get some answers to your health issues and start feeling better. Well, thank you so much for that, Jennifer. And thanks for being here. Yeah, they think that's what it is. And I kind of think that's what it is as well. I have an ultrasound scheduled for next week. I think it is. So we'll find out then. And God, I hope it isn't. I'm a baby. So I don't know. I don't know what I wanted it to be. I don't want it to be anything. It's painful. John Conlon, thanks for being a patron. Family first, always. You said it, Mike. I would always support anyone living by that creed. Thank you, John. That means a lot. You guys are really helping me out. It's really helping my soul. Josh Bennett, thank you for being a Lizard. He says a fellow runner and Lizard would expect and want our coach or leader to make the decision of family first and know you have the entire team behind you. And that's 100%, that 100% support your decision. There will always be another race, Lizard gathering medals, etc. But those family moments are invaluable and irreplaceable. Just know no one would be disappointed if you choose your true family over your Lizard podcast family. Now, with all that said, take care of your health. And if health Uh, and if healthy, we want to see some great dopey times. That's my goal. And that's why I'm freaking out, because I haven't run the last 2 days. I do not want to lose my fitness before dopey. This is the worst time for this to happen. But thank you, Josh. That was very kind. Thank you, Josh. Okay, good says, you totally did the right thing to be with your family. I can appreciate you making that decision. Thanks for being honest with all of us. Get healthy and take care. Thank you, Carrie, so very much. Jody, who was just on yesterday on the big show on the podcast, talking about her wine and dine race weekend recap. And I hope you enjoyed that one. We got a little Coronado talk in there, some great dining. We talked about Toledo's, which we never talk about. She was a great guest. It was going to go 35 minutes, went almost an hour because we're having so much fun. Jody says, so many great points in this podcast. Happy our international friends are able to visit the world again. Absolutely great to have them back. Absolutely thankful and appreciative that all of our veterans for their service. Thank you again, veterans, for being there. Their sacrifice to our country is simply beyond measure. And finally, Mike, your personal health and, of course, your family come first. You talk about that Disney commercial with the dad that says they're only little once. That one gets me every time. How true that is. They are only this age on this day. Trust me, your teammates understand. Jody, almost bringing me to tears just thinking about that commercial. Appreciate you. Thank you. Peter Shannon, my good buddy that is a Blue Jays fan through and through up in Canada, says, that must have been tough, Mike. You cannot go wrong with family first. Let's see. Not that it's my place to say, but I think that sharing your story with the larger podcast audience will resonate. We've all had to make hard decisions regarding Walt Disney World over the last few years, sometimes for family reasons or for health concerns or financial worries. Your experience will show people how Walt Disney World reacted to your change in plans, and in the end, how it all worked out. I think it's a very positive story to tell. Thanks, Mike. You got a big heart. We appreciate you being real. Cheers, Peter. Peter, thank you, buddy. I swear we're almost like brothers, and I'd love to go to a Jays Cardinal game with you sometime, either at Busch or up in Canada. So thanks for all the feedback, guys. Sarah's here. Family first is the way to go. I appreciate you sharing this challenge and how you dealt with it. I have a similar mindset to you, pretty positive. Take things as they go. So when stuff like this comes up, it really throws me off too. I definitely think you made the right choice. Thank you so much, Sarah. That means, yeah, because I don't stress. I do not stress. So when I do stress, I really stress because I'm like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be stressing. I don't know if you guys feel like that, but that's me. I so never stress about anything that when I have to stress, I don't know how to handle it. Some people are always stressed, and I guess they handle it well. I freak out, and I had a meltdown. I freaked out. Like I was like, oh my God, I got to cancel the room. I got to change my flight. I was a mess. And if I saw anybody down there, I know that I did meet a listener in the Pop Century lobby. We got a picture together. It was awesome. And if I was any kind of crazy sounding, I apologize because I was just, I was having a freak out moment. And I don't have those usually. So Sarah Crawford's here. 2 more. So I listen every week, but this past week's podcast was different. Backstory. I've been trying to get to Walt Disney World to run Princess for 3 years. In 2019, my husband had surgery, couldn't go. 2020, COVID. 2021, this is my year. I got a bib, booked my room, started training, moved a treadmill into my house, and I found out on Wednesday before this podcast came out that my daughter's last gymnastics competition will be that weekend. To say I'm torn is an understatement. My husband says, you are going. You've wanted this for so long. You never do anything just because you want to, and this is your chance. I don't know what I'll do, but I learned something from this podcast. If I do go, I need to feel comfortable in my decision before I leave because I'll make myself miserable otherwise. Fortunately for me, I have several months to think it over. Thank you, Mike, for sharing your story. If you and I struggle with parent guilt, I know there are others out there too. I needed to hear your story this week. Thank you. Well, Sarah, I'm glad that it wasn't just me, and I'm sorry that you're in this situation, but it is one of those things that I agree. I got down there. I mean, like I started to feel it on the plane, right? And the thing is, you don't want to start feeling it on the plane because you can't do anything about it. The plane's going 500 miles an hour away from your house. And you know that like there's no fast way to get home. You get there, you're at the airport, you got to get the Magical Express, you get to you're not getting home that night. It's just, I agree. So I think, yeah, I mean, but you've been waiting 3 years for this, but it isn't going to be comfortable if you're not 100% in on it. But just think about it, talk about it with the family. That is, I can't even answer that one because I'm still in that place where I'm glad I came home because I did get to sit there, be there for the for the last cheerleading competition for the birthday party, I would have done what I did again 100 times out of 100 times. But I get it. But I've run so many races. That's my thing. And I know I'm going back here in about a month, a month and a half. Oh, Sarah, I don't envy you, but thanks for the kind words and let us know how it goes. But either way, if you're down there, we're going to have a lot of lizards supporting you. I promise you that. Dennis Keithley, my good buddy, says, sounds like you made the right choice, Mike. There'll always be more races, but family time with growing children is fleeting and way more valuable in the long run. Besides, how much were you really going to enjoy yourself when you had that nagging feeling of guilt? I look forward to the day when I can meet you in person at a race in the future. Thanks for the bonus podcast each week. Dennis, you are the best. You're very succinct and very kind. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Yeah. Thank you. It was a hard week, so thank you. That was awesome. Okay, so enough of that. You guys are too nice to me. Too nice. And thank you for everything. You support the show, you support me. You guys are just too good to me. All right, let's talk about this podcast. This topic that I have here that was gonna be the big show. Just real quick for about 10 minutes. I won't go too long. But I called it home for the holidays. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I wondered if you are in one of these two ballparks. I'm a very nostalgic person. If I mentioned it earlier, I listen to a lot of retro podcasts. By retro podcasts, they're shows that talk about the like 80s stuff. And I know that sounds dumb. I was born in 73, but they talk about like toys of the 1980s, video games, Atari 2600, Commodore 64s, BBSs, all that kind of stuff that I grew up on. So I kind of find that stuff really intriguing. The shopping malls from the 80s, stuff like that, all the old stores. But when I hear and the podcasts that I really like are podcasts that people do basically out of their basement. I do my podcast out of the basement, but kind of the just the guy that's talking about memories, almost like Mike in the Midwest. And there's a few podcasts that I listen to where there's a common thread that I'm very, very um not jealous, but almost envious of. I don't know if there's a difference there. But this one podcast I listen to, I've mentioned it many times. It's called You Don't Know Flack. It's a guy named Rob O'Hara, and he went by Flack on the old BBSs back in the day on his Commodore 64. Kind of like Twitter, but back in the 80s. He always talks about, all these memories of growing up in the 80s. He's a writer, he's a great storyteller, and he's just got a phenomenal memory. And his childhood mirrored my childhood. He grew up in Oklahoma. It was very similar to mine. It's scary. A lot of his stories, I'm like, I did the same thing. And I was in Missouri. He was in Oklahoma. But the thing is, his dad still lives in the house where he grew up. Okay. So he still gets to go back to the house where he grew up whenever he wants to visit his father, on the holidays and all that stuff. So I wonder if you're in this boat. Now, when I grew up, I lived in the same house until I was in 6th grade. We had this nice little starter house in Florissant, Missouri. And it was a really tiny house, really tiny. But I went back and looked at some pictures the other day. My dad last Christmas gave me a hard drive with about 10,000 pictures that he scanned in over the past year during the pandemic. And I looked at some of the pictures that were from our old house growing up. In our wallpaper, no doubt, I'll have to post some of these somewhere. Our wallpaper in our old house, remember, I was born in 73. This was in the living room. It was gold and it had bicentennial like logos on it, like eagles. They were like ovals with like the bicentennial like eagle on it. Yes, we were patriotic in our house apparently because the wallpaper was gold like eagles with the bicentennial kind of looking logo kind of thing on it. Very patriotic in our in the Rallman household. Shag carpet, all that kind of stuff. But we grew up there. Now, see, the thing is though, when I went into 7th grade, we wanted to move to a better school district. So we moved just across town, still in Florissant, to a better school district. My dad was a construction worker. We built a new house from scratch in one of the subdivisions where my dad worked. Just a modest house, but it was definitely bigger than our starter house, where I grew up. And so from the time I was in high school, from 6th grade, we moved in the summer of 6th grade so that I would start middle school in 7th grade in the new school district in Hazelwood School District. We moved that summer and we stayed in that second home all the way up through the time that I moved out to go to college. Or I stayed in town, but I got an apartment. And then my parents got divorced when I was in college and they sold the house. So that house was gone. And then of course I lived in an apartment on my own during college. And then when I got together with Pam already owned a house with her and Paige. We had a little starter house. That's what it was because it's just Pam and Paige. I moved in with them. That was the house that I did the podcast out of until 2019. Tiny house, 800 square feet. Until we just got our house out here in St. Peters, Missouri. It's not much bigger. It's 1,400 square feet, but because it's like a 2 level, and now we can count the basement because it's finished and it's got a walkout door. But it's a great house. It's in a great neighborhood. We are so blessed to live where we live. It's not huge. We have probably one of the smallest houses in the area where we live because there's a lot of huge houses around us. We live in a great area, but we have like a little subdivision in a area with just gigantic mansions around us. But I'm so thankful for what we have. We are in such a we're a safe place, good school district, great Chick-fil-A's right down the street, Taco Bell. I love where I live, right next to the highway. It's easy to get places. I mean, we are so blessed. But here's the point I wanted to make. I'm so jealous of people where their parents still live in the place where you grew up. I find myself looking on Google Maps because I'm nostalgic like this. I don't know. Some people don't have this bug. I don't think my wife has this bug. I like to go on Google Maps and go back to my house that I had. It was on St. Daniel was the name of the street, the house that I grew up on from being a baby to 6th grade. Because that's like my formative years. That's the year I grew, the years I grew up with my good friend Ryan across the street, my best bud. We would ride bikes everywhere up to Duchesne Elementary. That was the school that was right around the corner, 2 streets over. My grandparents lived on the next street. They lived around the block on St. Regis, and I'd ride over to see them anytime I wanted. I'd see them every day because we'd ride our bikes. Be like, Ryan and I'd be like, let's go see Grandma Eileen and Grandpa Mace. And we'd go over and see them, and they'd make us lunch or, a snack or whatever. We'd play wiffle ball in their backyard just to have a change. We'd play on the playground at the elementary school. We'd go up to Bangor Park and, play on the tank that was in the playground or, ride around the swimming pool, whatever it was. Like that was our world until 6th grade. That's where we grew up. But the thing is, that house is still there. The St. Daniel house that I grew up in is still there. But I haven't been in that house since 6th grade. And now that I'm, in my mid 40s, I'm a girl, almost in my late 40s, what I wouldn't give to go back and just be able to walk through that house again. It's not ours, so I can't do it. But I'm so jealous of people that get to go back and just walk through their childhood, right? I mean, some people still get to go back and walk into their childhood bedroom, or you get to go down into the basement, and see all the stuff from your childhood. You might not have that bedroom set up like it was when you were a kid, but you can go down to the basement and maybe find the train that you had when you were a kid or, your baseball gear. I will say my parents got divorced after about 27 years of marriage. So I was in college. Um, so it was a weird thing. Like, a lot of parents, a lot of kids, when their parents get divorced, are younger. I was at a weird age 'cause I was in college. So it wasn't a huge deal to me. But the thing is, like, because like they divorced and I wasn't even at home at that time. I feel like a lot of my stuff got scattered to the wind. I don't know where a lot of my, stuff is from childhood. And being a nostalgic person, I would love to know where, because I had a train set when I was a kid. I don't know what ever happened to that. I had a lot of cool toys and stuff that I would have loved to have still had. I know I'm a 48-year-old or 47-year-old guy. I shouldn't care about that kind of stuff. But I'm just jealous that some people get to go back and sit at the kitchen table that they sat at as a kid. That's got to be a cool thing to sit in your same kitchen or to sit at the same living room, even if it looks different. It's been redecorated. You got new LCD TV and all that kind of stuff. I'll say where it really hits. It hits more, the second house when I moved, I said, we moved in 7th grade over to that house. I didn't have as much of a nostalgic connection to that one from 7th grade on. It was a nice house, but we built it from scratch and it was our house. But the first house is kind of the one that I would really like to walk through again. I wouldn't mind going through the one in Fox Lake, which is the 7th grade house, but it'd be kind of fun. But the house that it hurt to lose in the family was my grandparents' house. And so my grandfather passed away. My grandfather was like my hero. I got the middle name Charles. That was his name, Charles Rallman. And he was just my hero. He did everything. My grandpa was cool. And I did everything with him. He helped me build the MG it was a crappy car he bought for $500 when I was 10. We fixed it up. That was my first car. We worked on it for like 5 or 6 years. When I was 16, I got it. He was this cool guy, deacon at the church, cut the grass, chopped his toe off, built a church in Haiti, Grandpa always was out like shirt off on the sun deck in his backyard, sunbathing. He was just cool. He was crazy. He was cool. My dad's dad. Um, but he passed away in 2001. And then my grandma was just the perfect grandma, his wife, Grandma Ruth. She was awesome. And she was everybody's favorite. She worked at all the grocery stores in Florissant. She worked at Tomboy. Then she worked at Deerberg's. She drove a bus for the school district. Everybody in my town knew my grandma. Everybody in my town knew my grandma. When my grandma passed away, which was after my very first dopey, because I came home and wanted to show her the medal, but she was in the hospital. She passed the next day. Um, and I rushed down to show her the medal, but she was out of it. My dad's like, she won't understand. It really broke my heart because I want to show her. Um, but it's one of those things like she was gone. And so that was like in 2016 or 17 around there. When she passed, obviously, then we had to get rid of the house because we didn't need the house anymore. But we all grew up in that house. That was the house that my grandpa built in the 50s. My dad grew up in that house. I mean, it's probably harder on my dad now that I look back on it. But like every Christmas Eve, we were at my grandparents' house. I mean, we went there every Sunday after church and had lunch. That's where we called it dinner. But you went there after church every Sunday and had dinner, sometimes on the gazebo, inside in the kitchen if it was not nice out. And they lived really close to my first house, real close. We'd ride our bikes over there. I grew up at that house. I mean, I was there multiple times a week. And that was really the good times in life happened at that house. And it was on Harrison Street in Florissant. The good news is Pam, my wife, teaches at a school that's on the street where grandma's house was. There still is. She teaches on Harrison Street at Combs Elementary, where the old house is. And again, that house now has been out of the family for about 5 years. But I wonder, and I think about this probably more than I should. I wonder what that house looks like inside today. Because I can picture like this, what every detail of that house looks like. Because it's burned into my memory. There's a lot of pictures that we have, but I know that house because I was there so much. But that house now to me, more than the pictures, is more of a feeling. It's more of it's an idea. It's an idealized place. You know, it's like almost a utopia. I always felt safe at grandma's house. There were always chocolate chip cookies in the tin. You know, she never let that tin go empty. She always made more chocolate chip cookies. So when you showed up, there were chocolate chip cookies in the tin, in the cupboard on the upper left-hand corner. I have the tin. When she passed, that's the only thing I took was the tin. But God, you know what I wouldn't give to be able to go back into that house. So I know I've gone too long, but I'm just wondering. That's a question now, especially as the holidays come up. I wanted to ask you that question to kind of get some feedback for next week's show, going into Thanksgiving. You know, you always hear the song "Home for the Holidays," you know, or "I'll be home for Christmas." And home is basically where you get it. And I'm going to expand on this next week because I want to talk about something that's very touching that has to do with my wife, where she pretty much saved me at one point in my life and really saved Christmas for me. She saved Christmas for me. Absolutely. I mean, 100% showed me what Christmas was. And that's going to come up next week. But I want to get feedback from you. Are you one of the lucky ones? Do you still have those places, your home from your childhood? Can you still go back there? Do you still get to go back to that place or like your grandparents' house? Are there those places in your family that have those deep, wonderful memories that you can still go back to? Or are you like me that you're lucky that you have those memories? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not being ungrateful. I'm lucky that I had all those memories. But what I wouldn't give to be able to walk back into grandma's front door, ring that doorbell and hear it because they had a really distinct doorbell, or just hang out on the gazebo or work in grandpa's garage one more time. Or in the backyard, the people that live there probably don't know it. There's a cup in the backyard that we made so we could chip golf balls into the cup. It's probably there still. I don't know. I don't think we ever took it out. So tell me in the feedback again, patreon.com/BeOurGuestPodcast. Do you get to go home for the holidays for real? Or do you have to just go only in my dreams, as the song says? I want to hear your thoughts. We'll talk about it next week. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being you. Thanks for being so awesome. I appreciate you guys. You have a great week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon.